Ever feel like you're running on that financial treadmill,
Oh, yeah,
working hard, paying the bills,
definitely.
but not really getting ahead?
I think a lot of people feel that way.
We're diving into Rich Dad, Poor Dad
Yeah.
to see if Robert Kiyosaki's advice can help us break free.
What's interesting about this book is how it kind of throws out the typical money advice, the conventional wisdom.
Right.
Kiyosaki, he believes that traditional education, it neglects a really important piece,
Okay.
financial education.
Yeah.
He argues it's not about how much money you make, but what you do with it.
And his insights come from an interesting place, right? You
Yeah.
had two father figures.
Right,
His own dad, poor dad,
right.
and his friend's dad, rich dad, who had totally different views on money. It's like getting a crash course in finance, but from two totally different perspectives.
Exactly. And that's the core of the book, right?
Yeah.
Poor dad, he had a good education, but he always struggled financially.
Okay.
Rich dad, high school dropout, he becomes incredibly successful.
Interesting.
And so their different views on wealth and work, that's the foundation of the book. And one key takeaway, like a big one, is understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
Yeah. And that's something I think a lot of people misunderstand.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me more about that. Like, why is that difference so important?
Well, it all comes down to cash flow, right?
Okay.
So an asset puts money in your pocket even while you sleep.
Okay.
Think rental income or stock dividends.
Okay.
A liability, like a fancy car or a bigger house that takes money out of your pocket.
Expenses, payments, all that.
Exactly. So it's about changing how you think about money, right?
Yeah.
Instead of I want this, ask yourself, will this purchase, will this thing bring me closer to being financially free?
So it's less about keeping up with the Joneses and more about making sure your money is working as hard as you are.
Now you're getting it.
Okay.
It's about escaping what Kiyosaki calls the rat race.
Ooh. Tell me more about this rat race. It sounds painfully familiar.
Many of us, we're stuck in it. We're working for money, paying taxes, and then we use that money for liabilities that we think are assets.
Like a bigger house to impress the neighbors.
Exactly. So we get caught in this cycle, right?
Yeah.
Working to afford our lifestyle instead of building wealth.
It's like we're on that treadmill again.
Yeah.
Just running in place.
And the sad thing is, even a raise,
Right.
that can trap you further
How so?
because then you have lifestyle inflation and more debt.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
So if working hard and, climbing that corporate ladder doesn't guarantee financial security, then what's the alternative?
Well, this is where Kiyosaki's perspective on education and job security, it takes a turn.
Okay.
He argues that just focusing on one field, specializing, it can actually limit you.
Okay.
Instead, he says, develop a bunch of skills, and financial intelligence is a big one.
So it's not just about being good at your job, but understanding how money works.
Exactly. It's about being financially literate. You got to learn about accounting, investing, markets, even law.
Wow.
This knowledge, it gives you the power to make good decisions about your money.
So less about relying on just your job and more about creating multiple streams of income
Yes.
and understanding how to manage all of that.
Precisely. Kiyosaki, he really stresses this idea of minding your own business,
Okay.
which basically means building your assets, building that column up so that it's making you money.
So you have that money coming in.
Exactly.
And he's all about this. Like, he started super young.
Yeah. He actually started his first business as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
He was just a kid, and he started this comic book library.
Right. Yep.
In his friend's basement.
Clever.
It's a great example of how to create an asset that makes you money, even when you're not physically working.
Wow. Talk about starting young. It sounds like he's all about taking control of your finances and not being dependent on, a single source of income, your job.
Exactly. And one of the tools that he developed to teach all of these principles is the CASHFLOW game.
Right.
It's a game, like a board game, but it simulates real-life financial decisions.
Whoa, interesting.
Yeah. Buying, selling assets, dealing with debt, unexpected expenses.
So you're learning by doing, not just by, reading about it.
Exactly. Players get to test different strategies and make mistakes.
Right, which is important.
Yeah, without any of the real-world consequences.
Right.
It's really cool. They get to see how their choices impact their financial situation.
So it's like a safe space to, test out those financial muscles.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But even with the best tools, right, there's often this, mental hurdle
Oh, yeah.
that we have to overcome. And Kiyosaki talks about that too.
He does. He believes that Fear, laziness,
Right. We all have those.
and even arrogance. Those can all sabotage us,
Yeah.
keep us from being successful with money.
Ugh. And those are all painfully familiar. So what's the antidote? How do we fight those financial gremlins, so to speak?
One of the best things, and Kiyosaki talks about this a lot, is paying yourself first.
Wait, you mean even before bills, before expenses?
That's right.
That seems kind of impossible for a lot of people.
It might seem counterintuitive, but stick with me for a second.
Okay.
Kiyosaki says that when you take a chunk of your income, right,
Yeah.
and you set it aside for savings or investing before you pay anyone else, something happens.
Right.
Something changes in your mind.
So you're prioritizing your financial well-being, like right off the bat.
Exactly. Like putting on your own oxygen mask first.
Right. I like that.
You're taking care of yourself financially before anything else. And yeah, it might mean you have to cut back somewhere.
Right.
Or find ways to make more money.
Of course, yeah.
But that's when the magic really happens.
And he talks about this in the book. I think there's an anecdote about how do you even find this extra money when you're already stretched thin?
Yeah, there is. He talks about a time where he was short on cash and had to make a decision. Does he pay his creditors or himself?
Ooh, that's tough.
Right. And his argument is that when you're in that position, even though it's uncomfortable,
Right.
when you make that choice to prioritize your savings, you're forced to become resourceful,
Yeah. Necessity is the mother of invention. You've got to make it work.
Exactly. But, sometimes it's also about being willing to get help, right?
Sure, yeah. Is that something Kiyosaki recommends, like seeking out advice?
Oh, absolutely. He's all about lifelong learning and finding mentors. He's got this great quote. He says, "What you don't know is what costs you money."
That's a good one, yeah. So it's okay to admit what you don't know.
100%. Find those people who are experts in the areas that you want to grow in.
Surround yourself with people who know more than you, essentially.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to take risks.
Calculated risks.
Well, of course, calculated risks, exactly. Like he talks about this Indian giver mentality.
Right, and I'm really curious about that because some people might hear that and be kind of put off, Can you tell me a little bit more about what he means by that?
Yeah, so it's not about being unethical or anything like that.
Okay, good.
It's really just about being savvy, thinking like an investor.
So being strategic and really maximizing your returns.
Yes, 100%. He gives this example. Let's say you buy a rental property.
Okay.
Someone with that Indian giver mentality, they're not just going to be happy with the rent money.
Right.
They're going to be looking for ways to increase the value.
Right, okay.
Maybe make some improvements or find some tax advantages. They're always looking for an edge.
So it's about being creative and finding those win-win situations. And it seems like Kiyosaki is really big on mentorship too, right?
Yeah.
Sharing that knowledge. It's like, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, right? Teach a man to fish.
He eats for a lifetime.
There you go.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's about building wealth.
Yeah, exactly. And Kiyosaki, he tells this really great story about his friend's son, right? And how he wanted to get him into real estate.
Oh,
So he's like, okay, I'll tell you what. I will buy you a car
what?
if you commit to learning about this.
That's a pretty good incentive.
Right.
Sounds like he really practices what he preaches. He believes in it.
He does. He really does. He sees it as a pathway, to freedom.
Yeah.
Opportunity. Like it gives you the power to take control of your life, write your own story.
So after this deep dive, what are some key takeaways that people can apply, starting today? What can they do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just that mindset shift,
Yeah.
You got to challenge those old beliefs about money. Remember, assets put money in your pocket.
Right, and liabilities take it out.
Exactly. Work smarter, not harder.
There you go. Find those ways to make your money work for you.
Yeah, and start thinking about how you can build up those assets.
Real estate, stocks, your own business, all that.
There you go.
And never stop learning.
That's there.
Right. Find those mentors.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to take those calculated risks.
100%. And, at the end of the day, it's not all about the money either.
Right.
It's about having the freedom to do what you want.
Spend time with family, give back.
Exactly. Pursue those passions.
So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, the listener, that same question. What's the formula you're using to manage your money?
Yeah.
Is it working?
Good question.
Or is it time for a rewrite? Maybe, just maybe, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and some of these ideas we've been talking about can help you write your own financial success story.